Ah! Oh, holy fuck. Oh my god. I had no idea. Oh man. Wow. You guys were making comments and I was like, oh, is something wrong with my camera? Oh man. All right. Well, now that I've given my entire presentation, is the audio not working? Is that actually Jesus Christ? Yeah, tell me, don't. I'm a retard, guys. I told you, I'm kind of retarded. You got to spell it out real clear. Goob, you're not streaming. Let me know. I even reposted the link because I was, oh man. All right. Well, let me, I'm going to restart this Zoom meeting because it's almost over at this point. So I'm just going to end this meeting, restart, let's launch a new one, and then I'll go. That was, I guess, a good prep for the actual show since I just did the whole show to myself. Jesus Christ. I can't believe you guys stuck with me that whole time too. You guys are incredible. You guys are the best, except for not letting me know clearly. Oh, goodness. My bad, fellas. My bad. All right. So I'm back on the Zoom. I'll post the new link here. Goodness gracious, and my video's not live. For some reason, why is my video not live? There we go. Goodness, fellas. Well, how's everyone doing? Everyone enjoying the show so far? Let me get this link in here. If anyone would like to call in, there's the link. Talking Dragons. You still can't hear. Is Michael the only one that can't hear? Kind of seems like Michael. I guess I could test this for myself real quick. Yeah. Sounds on. I think that's you, Michael. I still can't pin. It will not let me pin comments right now for some reason. But there is the link. If you need me to repost it, let me know, and I will repost it. I was talking to you guys in chat too. I read all your comments. I thought we were interacting. I thought we were having a back and forth here. I told the whole story of St. George just for you, Mr. Slav. I went through the entire story of St. George just for you. Oh goodness. So, yeah, dragons, fellas, dragons. Whew. So dragons are pretty much one of the most universal myths you will find. They are about as ubiquitous as the flood myth. You find the flood myth in every single culture in every single part of the world, and the same is true for dragons. You have them on every single continent except for Antarctica. African dragons, Japanese, Chinese, Australian, North American, South American, European, Russian, they're everywhere. And everywhere, choking myself. That's to Galunus. They play a very important role everywhere as well. They're not just this side character. They are key parts of pretty much every religion, including Christianity. and maybe a much bigger part of Christianity than you think. I'm not just referring to the Leviathan, but I'll get into all of that eventually. So let's just start talking about some of these dragons. You have the Japanese and the Chinese dragon, which are very similar. They're wingless, but they do fly. Some of them breathe fire. Some of them control water and or lightning. Same thing with Chinese dragons. They look very, very similar. They also fly, but don't have wings, breathe fire. Some of them control water. You have dragons from Australia. You have the rainbow serpents from Australia. They are very similar to the South American dragons, the feathered serpents that you find in South America, which this is a good example of one right here. I mentioned Quetzalquotl previously in an episode. Quetzalquotl is Viracocha, who is all of the other ones as well, at least supposedly. The Mayans, the Aztecs, all of these different cultures in that area, they all worshipped the same god, this blonde-haired, blue-eyed, bearded man who came over with a small group of people who were also tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, bearded men with pale skin. And Quetzalcoatl could transform into a feathered serpent. So he was both a man and a dragon. And there's a lot of similarities between Quetzalcoatl and Jesus Christ. So Quetzalcoatl came over to Peru. I've got something in my throat. So Quetzalcoatl came over to South America and brought his religion and his civilization and knowledge. He wore crosses on his clothing, and he was ultimately crucified by these people in the end of it. He was driven out and crucified. So it's not an exact mirror with Jesus Christ, but he has a lot of parallels, a lot of similarities. It's rather interesting. And I'll be getting more into some religious aspects later in the show. But right now, just highlighting all of the different types of dragons. You have dragons in Africa, which there's both dragons that the African tribes, they're part of their mythology. Again, a very important part. But then you also have the worms that were reported by the Romans. And you have these creatures that were described as reptilian rhinoceros. Yeah, I'll get to St. George in a minute. You have these creatures in Africa by a lot of accounts, not only the locals in Africa, but people who have visited Africa. Many different people from different locations visiting Africa reported these reptilian rhinoceros in the Congo. Sounds a lot to me like a dinosaur, quite similar to a triceratops, perhaps. And this episode is not about dinosaurs, but you have, the behemoth in the Bible, which a lot of people speculate is a dinosaur. I kind of do as well. And there's some other interesting accounts that would lead one to potentially believe that dinosaurs, at least some of them, made it through to people times. And maybe that's related to the dragons. What's the difference between a dinosaur and a dragon? I guess dragons fly and breathe fire. But also, if dinosaurs were walking around, I could see how they could get exaggerated a bit into a fire-breathing monster. St. George. I'll go ahead and talk about St. George. So, dragons are very important in Christian mythology as well. They are a part of so many different religions: the Greek, the Roman, Hindu. I already mentioned some of the others. They're central figures in all of these religions. And so in Christianity, one of the ways they were important is that they were a symbol for slaying. These Christian heroes, these saints, would slay dragons. Saint George the Dragon Slayer is one of the most interesting accounts for a reason that I will tell you at the end of this story. But there was this village being terrorized by this dragon, and this village negotiated with the dragon, and they said, hey, we will feed you 2 goats a day to leave us alone. Don't mess with our village, and we'll give you 2 goats a day. So they did this for a while, but then they ran out of goats. They couldn't sustain it, so they eventually started giving their children to the dragon instead. And after doing this for a while, the king's daughter was drawn from the lottery. And so the king's daughter was dressed in a nice white wedding dress, all virginal, marched up the hill and presented to the dragon. And before the dragon could kill the king's daughter, St. George rides in on his horse, and he knocks the dragon down and grabs the princess's girder, wraps it around the dragon's neck, and marches the dragon back into the village, where he tells them, I'll slay this dragon for you if you all promise to convert to Christianity. And so they all converted to Christianity. He slayed the dragon right there. They built a church on the spot that he slayed the dragon. And until 1837, this dragon's head was displayed on a wall in this town. It was either a fort wall or I think maybe the church's wall itself. But until 1837, this dragon's head was on display. As far as I know, there's no photographs of it, but that's not that long ago. There was a dragon head on display, a very famous dragon head. St. George was the slaying of the dragon by St. George was very famous. I can only imagine it was a popular tourist destination, so lots and lots of people seeing this dragon head over the years. And let me read what you fellas are saying here. All right. And some of there are different types of dragons. It's hard for me to even keep straight what I said previously and what I'm trying to say now. Yeah, I was just about to talk about how a lot of the dragons are hybrid creatures. Let me read this and then I'll get into that. All right, so yeah, the hybrid dragons. So there's many different types of dragons. There's the feathered dragons, the feathered serpents of the Americas and of Australia, which it's interesting that those two things are linked. We were talking about Mr. Galunas was talking about the New Zealanders that made their way to America. So, just another piece of supporting evidence that there might be some link there. And a lot of the dragons are these hybrid creatures. In Greek and Roman mythology, there's the Hydra, which has multiple heads. There's one of the other dragons has snakes for legs. And you see these other dragons that have just this weird amalgamation of different creatures' body parts, lions and bears and other parts. And this is always dismissed as nothing more than stories. But when you start looking into all these accounts and you start adding them together, they start to make you scratch your head a little bit. For example, there's the transplant of the Moorish leg, the transplant of the Moor's leg, the miracle of the black leg, whatever you want to call it, which is this well documented. You see all of these different paintings of it. These are all different paintings of the same event. In medieval times, this saint came along and took this black dude's leg, this Moor's leg, and transplanted it onto this white guy. And he did so successfully. And the guy lived, I think, for like 7 more years or something like that. This was a well-documented event. And there's a lot of other accounts out there And you see rather commonly these hybrid creatures in these ancient, it's called mythology, but ancient history, or whatever word you would like to use. You see them in their statues and their art all over the place. Maybe there was something going on there. Maybe these hybrid creatures were being created. I don't know. Who decided to throw out the dragon head? There were some workers who repaired the building, whose decision it was exactly, but when they repaired the building, they threw it out in 1837. So, yeah, there were dragons. The North American natives had dragons in their culture. The South American natives had a few different dragons, the most important probably being Quetzalquotl, which I talked about, who was also Viracocha, who was all of those cultures' god. And they're just all over. So you have Russian dragons, Slavic dragon, that you have the classic European dragon, which is found on so many different flags and banners and crests. The dragon is all over Europe. So the Bible is what before I get to the Bible, Sumeria is what I want to talk about. So Sumeria, Egypt, all of these places, they all had dragons. They were all gods and very important figures. But Lord of the Rings, which people claim is based off Fafnir. Smaug is based off Fafnir, who was, what's that Viking story? Beowulf. The dragon from Beowulf, Lord of the Rings, was based on that, supposedly. And if you go back even further, Fafnir was based on a dragon all the way back from Sumeria. When I said that Sumeria had everything prior to the Industrial Revolution, they had mastered all of it, they had perfected all of it, and they had all of it, I meant it. Even our stories today come from Sumeria. And so Sumeria had this dragon. So there was this guy who went to visit these dwarves, and he went out on a hunt, and he killed this otter. And he brings this otter back to the king, and he goes, "Look at the fruits of my hunt. Aren't you impressed?" And the dwarf king goes, "Bro, that's my son. You just killed my baby boy." The dwarves could shapeshift, by the way, if I left that detail out. So his son was in otter form. This hunter killed him, presents his dead son to the king. And the king goes, "You done goofed, my man. You better give me his weight in gold, or else bad things are going to happen." So this guy knows of a nearby dragon. Dragons love gold. He'll just swoop by there and pick up some gold. So he goes to the dragon, fights the dragon, and beats him. And the dragon goes, "You can have all of my gold, just don't take my magic ring. My magic ring brings good fortune to whoever has it. Just leave me the ring and take all of my gold." So naturally, the guy takes the gold and the ring, and he brings it back to the dwarf king. And his debt is paid. The dwarf king accepts the ring, not knowing that the dragon has now cursed the ring to bring misfortune instead of good fortune. And so shortly after the king gets the ring, his sons are jealous and kill him, and the kingdom falls to ruin. The king is dead. Everything goes to shit because of this ring, which is an awfully similar story to the Lord of the Rings. This is all the way back from Sumeria over 5,000 years ago. This is not the only story that Sumeria came up with, though. Sumeria also has the story of Noah. Not just the story of the flood, because everyone has the story of the flood. It has the almost exact same story as Noah and his ark, just with different names. He even lands on Mount Ararat, right? It's the exact same story. The only difference is in the Sumerian story, he's a priest king and not just a guy. Although Noah wasn't exactly just a guy because he had that Abrahamic lineage. So, and so you connect this with Quetzalquotl being a Jesus-like figure who had crosses on his clothing, and the Egyptians having the same story as the Sumerians for Noah, and then the Bible having the same story as the Sumerians and the Egyptians for Noah. And you go back, this isn't a religion episode, but, talking about dragons, it's closely related. I'll do a religion dedicated episode. But you have all of these, when you go back into the earliest forms of these religions, because the Christianity of today is not the Christianity of 2,000 years ago, and same for all of these religions. The earliest stories, the parallels and similarities just keep stacking up and up and up. And it really seems to me that Hinduism, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Christianity, all of them are based on the same original story, probably a true story. And dragons play a very, very important role in Christianity. Not only is the Leviathan often called a dragon, but Yahweh, the biblical God, the name that the Hebrews give him. If you go back to the earliest writings in, I think it's the Torah, there are descriptors of Yahweh that make him sound rather dragon-like. There's a word, I think it's at or ot. I don't speak Yiddish. But it either means anger or nose. But the descriptors around, in the commonly accepted translation, is that it means anger. But the descriptors around that word kind of suggest that they're talking about a physical description, and they're describing his nose, because he breathes smoke from his long nose, and people have translated that to be like, well, his wrath is fiery and long-lasting is what that means, but it really makes a lot more sense in the context of nose. And there's some other descriptors as well that would indicate he might be a dragon. There's also this thing in the Bible called the tabernacle. And the tabernacle is basically a big tent, but it is extremely detailed in its description. It tells you exactly what materials to use, the exact dimensions, exactly how to construct and connect these materials. It's a very, very specific thing. And the tabernacle is where God would stay when he was down on earth. When he was on earth with his people, he would be in the tabernacle. No one would ever see God. Only the high priest or whatever title he had was able to enter the tabernacle. But even within the tabernacle, there was a secondary tent, so he never saw God himself either. So God would come down to earth. He wouldn't interact with people, though. He would just be present, and he would be in this tent. And they would bring into this tent offerings of goats, gold, and virgins. All things that dragons love. There would also be smoke pouring out of the tent. The goats, gold, and virgins did not come back out of the tent. And it would be a lot. They'd offer 40 goats at a time or something like that, I think. And sounds rather dragony to me, So you have Quetzalquotl, who's this Jesus figure who transforms into a dragon. You have Yahweh, who might be a dragon. I don't know. It's just, and then you have Sumeria, which has its dragons and its legends. and they also have the Noah flood myth and everything else. There's just all of these parallels, all of these connections that stack upon each other, and it really makes you start to wonder, with all of these similarities across so much distance and time and culture and everything else. It's like there has to be something these things are based on, or there has to be something going on here where, yeah, it just seems like there's a common thread that all of this stuff is based on to me. So let's see what you guys are talking about. Rhinoceros, yeah. The alternate story was that they got to taste and chase the dragon forever. Yeah, I mean, dragons, they're not always hunted, because you have dragons that are revered, like in China and Japan, but oftentimes they are these beasts to be slain. So if they were real, did we just like hunt them out of existence and destroy them? Doesn't seem too crazy. I don't remember. Yeah, that was after that. God, my brain is flighty. I just wanted to make a point, but right. I was talking about extraterrestrials last week, and this idea that there are these beings that are extraterrestrial, extra dimensional, whatever you want to call them. They don't have a set form. They just interact with people with whatever form they think will suit their needs best. This could also explain, why dragons are ubiquitous but slightly different across different parts of the world. Why these religions have so many similarities but ultimately differences. It's like maybe these creatures were interacting with all of these different people across all different parts of the world, and doing so in the forms of dragons and gods and whatever. I don't know. It's just an avenue of thought to consider. You like the Tartary Black Dragon? Yeah, I finally watched the Tartary episode of Low Value Mail. Somehow I had missed that one, and I just watched it the other day. It was a good episode. Your nuts are dragon. That sounds unpleasant. You should fix that. Yeah, yeah. And then even with hallucinogens, and going back to these extraterrestrials, right, is you see people see the same things when they take these drugs, when they drink ayahuasca and they do shrooms. They see these jesters and these clowns and these golden elves, like people, and these are things that have been seen for a very long time, and so it's hard to explain why there's these very specific and very strange things that people see consistently on these hallucinogens. Are they peering through the veil and seeing, actually making contact with these extraterrestrials? Are those the beings? Not going to go into it in this episode, but the Nephilim or clowns stuff is a lot of fun, and I might dedicate an episode to that one day, because that's a really fun topic. Yeah, that's a decent point, Mr. Watson. Mange can make creatures look rather crazy, and I bet there's some other stuff out there too. You ever seen a shaved bear? It's terrifying. There we go. Sorry, there's some already. Yes, I just joined. What is the significance of the dragon stereotypically hoarding gold? I don't know. That's a great question, but yeah, it's a pretty widely found stereotype. I'm not sure about the Asian dragons. I'm not sure about China and Japan, if they hoarded gold. I wouldn't be surprised. I think offerings were made to the dragons, so yeah, I don't know why, but it's virgins, gold, obviously meat. They like goats, right? That one kind of makes natural sense. But yeah, why do they love virgins and gold? I don't know, but you even see that in the Bible with Yahweh the dragon. There are many gods. Yeah, I believe that. I think the Christian God is one of them. I think Yahweh is one of them. I think all of the religions are based off of real gods, and again, it's just different cultures and thousands of years, as well as these people could have had different experiences. Like, it's not unthinkable that if there are 10 gods, or however many, right, that a handful of them are interacting with one part of the world and another one's interacting with another part of the world. One group of people might only ever experience one god, or at least mostly. That's kind of my thoughts on it. Again, I'll do a full episode on religion at some point. Eddie Torres. Ultra terrestrials, you could call them that too. I was saying extra, but I don't know. I don't know about the terms. That's not my expertise. But yeah. I know there is more to this. It's such a massive topic that every single culture has their dragons. So it really is a huge, huge topic. I don't remember what parts I wanted to touch on anymore, and what parts I've already touched on, because I talked about it for 30 minutes before actually going live. So if anyone would like to call in, I'll repost the link, since it's still not letting me, pin it. And, call in with some questions about dragons or history in general. I gave a dude a ride home from work today and ended up talking about this alternate history stuff. It's pretty cool how out there it is. Like, this topic is definitely gaining more steam. He brought up like the Dogon tribe, which was cool. I was just talking about them a few weeks ago. Still can't pin comments, but such is life. So yeah, if anyone does want to call in, let me know. Otherwise, I'm gonna end this shortly because I'm drawing a blank on other connections I wanted to make with dragons. But I think the Sumerian, Egyptian, Bible, Quetzalquotl, South America, connecting all of those things together was the most important part. So, as long as you guys got that, I think I'm good, and I can expand at some later point if I want to. It wasn't real. That's so disappointing. That was like one of the funniest things ever, maybe. That was absolutely hilarious. But yeah, if no one wants to call in, it was good chilling with you guys. I thank you so much for waiting that entire time. I can't believe you guys just hung out. You guys are awesome. You're incredible. Speaking of being awesome, if you guys don't mind hitting the like button, maybe leaving a comment, it would be cool to get into the algorithm a little bit. I love you guys. Absolutely love having a dedicated audience. It is like, I truly am very happy to have this. Wasn't even expecting this much, so it's really awesome. You guys are fantastic. A+ audience. But if I can pick up some randos from the algo and build that up even more, that would be really cool too. So, dude, it was. I can't think of, like, it was perfect. It was comedy perfection. So it's still damn funny that someone did that even as a fake. But man, that would have been good if it was real. Perfect, just perfect if it was real. Yeah, I know I did have more because, like I said, it's such a big topic, but it's also such a big topic that it's hard to keep all the ideas straight in my head, and I'm kind of retarded and I don't take notes. I never took notes in school, so I never learned how to take notes or read notes, and now that's kind of, less than ideal, I suppose. But all right, fellas. Well, it was good chilling with you. thank you so much again, and I'll catch you next week. I think I might go back to some oop arts next week. We'll see. I haven't fully decided, but there's plenty more oop arts to talk about. There's some really cool things that I didn't get to last time, so I think that'll probably be next week's video. Make sure to press on your videos to not share videos with subscribers. I don't even know that button, but all right, I'll try and find it and try and uncheck it. You could call in and extend it, Mr. Watson. If you want the show to go on longer, there's a very easy way for you to make that happen. But since no one is calling in, I'm a dip, and I'm gonna go lock my chickens up. So I'll give it 30 more seconds. I'll just stare at the screen, not blinking, for 15 more. I blinked. I messed it up already. But yeah. All right, fellas. Peace out. I'll catch you next week. Thank you, everyone. Like, comment, help me in that algo. It'll be very appreciated if you would, as I try to close this.